I did acquire this sort of label, failed entrepreneur, and it's quite interesting because it was a 16-year journey. And being an entrepreneur is like a roller coaster ride. So you can take a slice at any point in the journey and say, oh, that's successful, oh, that's not successful. So it depends where your point of measurement is. And I think the point I was trying to make is that, you know, when I was questioned, am I a success or am I a failure? You know, I mean, it seems like it's a very black and white thing in our society, but I think it's better to have tried and created something, a multi-million-pound business, which for over a decade was profitable and growing and, you know, created hundreds of jobs. It's far better to have done that and then lost it than to have not bothered at all. There was a mix of reasons. One, we'd embarked on a big growth strategy, which was quite expensive. Secondly, there was lots of expenditure which was sort of lurking and hidden and under the radar expenditure, which kind of came out. And there was also a big issue around contingent liability on vouchers that we'd sold, and how much is that contingent liability? And that's a really difficult thing if you're a voucher business, because there's huge non-redemptions. So until vouchers have all been redeemed, you don't know for sure what your, it's a bit like the current banking situation, you don't quite know for sure what your provision should be against ultimate redemption. So that was a big factor. And when you get into a difficult situation, auditors will always want to be as prudent as possible, because otherwise they get sued. So if you have an auditor involved, you know, it's very difficult to persuade them that their provisions are too high. The thing is, in business, it's not about the problem, it's about the discovery of the problem. And I'd stepped back from the business in 2002 and we'd embarked on a huge kind of growth strategy. And kind of 9 months into it, and I'd stepped back into a non-exec role, 9 months into that, I started to sense that things were going very badly wrong, and it was almost intuitive. And I realised that I had to go back into the company and start sorting things out. But at that point, I don't think you really know what the problem is. And it actually took a further 6 months of unravelling to discover that we'd gone from making £1 million profit, you know, a year or so before, to making a £4.7 million loss. And I think one of the key learnings is you've really got to have really accurate, honest management reporting in a business, because the board wasn't being told really the extent of what was going on, I think. The interesting thing for me, after Red Letter Days crashed, was that so many other entrepreneurs confided in me about the problems that they'd gone through in their own business life that I'd never realised about. And I think when you're in business and you're having problems and you're struggling, you kind of think you're the only one that has experienced this and you're sort of doing something badly wrong. So I think if I'd known more about other entrepreneurs' adversity when I was going through mine, I think perhaps I would have approached it differently. And that was one of the reasons for writing the book, actually, to get it out there to entrepreneurs. If you're having problems and you're struggling, it's actually quite normal. You're not the exception. When the company went into administration, we actually had 3.3 million cash at bank, and 3 million of it we couldn't touch because Barclays Bank had bonded it. And so I was doing a refinancing deal. I'd raised 2 million from HBOS and was looking for 2 million of equity, and we were just about to do a due diligence process to work through that. And we just got to the point where we just ran out of time, and we had lots of creditors, and one of them actually put in a winding up order against the business, and that was kind of the nail in the coffin, because we had to declare the administration to protect the company from its creditors. Whereas actually, if those creditors had just stuck with it and just given me the time to sort it out rather than panicking, we could. I'm convinced we could have traded through and we could have refinanced. And the aim was to float on AIM. That was the whole point of it. So I think sometimes creditors can kind of be their own worst enemy in that situation. If you get an opportunity to be a TV celebrity, I mean, why wouldn't you just take it? It seems sort of odd to me that you'd say, no, I'd prefer to sit behind my desk, actually. And don't forget the media value of Dragon's Den was valued at, each series was valued at £1 million. So it was huge free advertising for the brand. I just think if I'd had a stronger team, I could have been that figurehead role doing the Anita Roddick stuff. If I'd had a strong team back at the ranch to run the machine while I wasn't there. I think being a woman in business can be a huge advantage. Anything can be turned to your advantage, actually. It just depends on the situation. So I think you can use your femininity, your vulnerability, your passion. And I think 70% of consumers are women, so actually female-led brands and female-led businesses which are run with honesty, ethics, integrity, collaboratively, can actually really turn customers on a lot more than, you know, fast alpha male thrusting, you know, RBS type companies, you know. The thing is, I think there are differences between men and women and the way that they approach business, and I think most women that I meet, with the exception of the thrusting alpha female type, and there are a lot of those, but most women tend to be very trusting, very collaborative, very open, very honest, and it's very easy in that situation for your trust to be betrayed and for you to be manipulated. And it particularly happens, I hate to say it because this sounds like a stereotype, but I've heard so many stories around this where you've got female entrepreneur and male FD or financial controller in charge of the purse strings, and she typically trusts him absolutely, and she doesn't really want to get into the figures anyway. She just wants someone to sort it so she can focus on the marketing and the product side and the creative bit. And what can often happen in that situation is greed can kick in. And if you put someone like that who decides, if an FD chooses to manipulate figures and steal from the company and all the rest of it, there's lots of ways that they can do it very subtly without being found out for a very long time. Well, there's a couple of bits of advice. I think number one thing is you've really got to manage your motivation, because most entrepreneurs I meet who are in a dire situation, they go into this negative spiral, sort of tailspin of fear and depression, and it's very difficult to work your way out if you're in that kind of energy place where everything is closing in and, you know, nothing's working. And the second thing I'd say is you have to get help as soon as there's a problem, because when a business goes, and any insolvency person will tell you this, when a business goes down, it goes down very fast. It collapses literally like a pack of cards. So you might think you've got 3 months, but really you might only have 6 weeks. So you don't have the luxury of time. You need to, as soon as you think you've got a problem, particularly if it's a cash flow problem, you need to start getting someone in to help you and making the changes you need to right at this moment, even if they're completely ruthless. Because it's far better to do that than think, oh, it will work itself out and a white knight will appear on the horizon, because that's quite rare.